Hello my fellow Christian fiction lovers, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be sharing with you some cute summer romancy reads, but there's kind of a catch to it because, as you guys might know, I'm not the biggest romance fan. I like to read books that center around one thing and maybe have romance in them. Like two characters might be love interests for one another, but they also might not be, something like that. So with that being said, that means I don't have a ton of specific romance books on my shelves, but I do have a few, so I'm going to be sharing 6 with you, and I'm going to go from lighthearted, pure romance through some more challenging books with harder, more triggering topics that do have a more central focus of romance. So the farther into the video you get, make sure you look up any trigger warnings for the books that I mention, and also I might talk about it a little. But let's get into it. So first we're going to start with When Two Hearts Meet by Liz Johnson. I mean, just the title of the book, When Two Hearts Meet, it sounds like a romance. So this is actually the second book in the Prince Edward Island Dreams series. I have read the whole series. I do recommend all 3, but the first one and the third one they definitely do have to do with romance, but it's also about battling the main character's past. This one, she does have some tough stuff she has to get over, but she definitely does get over it by falling in love. So I would say this is pure romance, and it is so cute. So we follow, what's her name? Caden. We follow Caden, who is a chef at her friend's bed and breakfast, and she has always lived on the island. She's never really met anyone, and then one of the guests at the bed and breakfast is this, like, I think he's a writer. Yes, he's a travel writer, and they think that he might be writing an article to save the inn. So Caden kind of befriends him and gets him to kind of like the bed and breakfast so that their business can go up, and in the process she falls in love with him and he falls in love with her, and it's really sweet, and you kind of don't see how they will end up together and like how it will work out, and I'm not going to give it away, but it's so cute. And when I was reading this, I was like pretty into baking. It was during the pandemic, so I was trying to find hobbies, and she is like a baker, and it was super fun to read about her like being in the kitchen and baking and cooking, and I loved it. I loved it. I loaned it to one of my friends and she also really liked it. So you don't just have my vote of advice, you have her vote of advice. Or not advice, confidence. Vote of confidence. Next is a more recent read for me, and that is A Glitter of Gold by Liz Johnson. This is another Liz Johnson book. And this is the second book in the Georgia Coast romance series. I have not read the first one, and I don't know if it includes characters that were in this novel. I don't think it's one that I would seek out and read. I definitely preferred the Prince Edward Island Dreams series more than this book, but this book follows a young woman who has this like pirate tour business in Savannah, Georgia. She like basically just takes tour groups around the city and like tells them about the history of pirates in Savannah, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. And then her love interest is a like museum curator or manager or something like that at the Maritime Museum in Savannah. And basically this girl, Anne, she finds this like sword hilt from a pirate ship, and after this like hurricane, and she takes it to the museum to see like what it's worth, and they end up working together to try and find the pirate ship that it came off of, because it just so happens that this guy is also obsessed with pirates and the pirate ship. And through the whole like journey they catch feelings for one another, and it's pretty cute. I will say Anne's story, she definitely was like battling some tough stuff from her past, but that definitely added to her story. And when, what was his name, Carter, found out about some of it, it really brought them closer together, and I really liked that. It enhanced the story so well. But yeah, so that's the next. Liz Johnson I think only writes like romance, but yeah. Okay, the next book is The Inheritance by Tamera Alexander. It has been a while since I've read this book, but I do remember absolutely loving it. I think I gave it 5 stars at the time. And basically this book follows McKenna. It's set in like the Wild West days. I think not too long after the Civil War. It's set in 1877. But anyway, so McKenna and her younger brother move out west to move in with their cousin, but when they get there, they find out, I believe, that the cousin had died or something like that. And McKenna has to take care of not only her younger brother, who is pretty rebellious and doesn't really listen to her, but she also has to take care of, I think it was her niece, and kind of be like a mother to her. And along the way, she meets U.S. Marshal Wyatt Carradine, and I think he's like stationed out west, and he ends up like trying to protect her and help her, and they are definitely love interests for one another, and they have to solve these problems of like McKenna's younger brother is like super rebellious and, like I said, won't listen to her, and also taking care of her niece, and like all these struggles of living out west. And then she also, McKenna meets this like little Chinese girl, or not, she's not a girl, she's a woman, and like learns about the Chinese that were living in the West at the time as well. And it's really cool. It's pretty educational. I really liked it. I mean, not educational in a bad way, but it definitely had romance, and like they were fighting their feelings and like, no, I can't feel this way for him, or I can't feel this way for her. It all works out, obviously, but I really liked it, and it was so good. I want to reread this book because I read it a year and a half ago, something like that. Feels like forever ago. But yeah, it was really good, and I would definitely recommend it. I want to read more by Tamera Alexander eventually, I think. Okay, so next up, like we're halfway through the video. I have 3 more books left, and all of them have some harder things in them. So yeah, we're gonna start with, actually we're gonna start with this one. Okay. We're going to start with Lulu's Cafe by T.I. Lowe. Or not start, continue. But anyway, Lulu's Cafe. Look at this. It looks like a sweet little book. It looks like the cutest little small town romance you ever laid your eyes on. Wrong. Wrong. I will stop you right there. It is not the cutest little small town romance you've ever laid your eyes on. No. It is very hard. This book starts with this woman who is basically trapped in this marriage where she is being abused, and she ends up falling pregnant. And there are some complications with that, and she basically runs away from her husband because he is literally like, he's so mean to her. He's words that I should not say on this channel. She ends up running away from him and meeting this woman, Lulu, who owns this cafe, and begins to work for her, like far, far away from where her ex-husband was. But anyway, so this book right out the gate is very hard, and I honestly wasn't sure, like, if it was going to get better. It was like, this poor woman. But it does. She ends up meeting a love interest in this new town and has to like slowly and carefully peel back the layers of her history, because she definitely doesn't lead with she was escaping an abusive marriage. But it comes out eventually, and the guy that she ends up with is literally so good. So good. Like, he was amazing and just so patient and caring for her. And I did give this book 5 stars. Kind of a romance, like it was a romance. I mean, she did end up falling for this one guy and being able to get over what had happened to her, but oh my gosh. Please check the trigger warnings though. This book has like every trigger warning you could think of in it. Next we have Grace in Thine Eyes by Liz Curtis Higgs. This book was something. So actually this book is kind of like a follow-on to the like Lowlands of Scotland series by her, which I did not like. So anyway, this book is about the daughter of one of the couple in that series, and she has a pretty traumatic summer when she goes to visit some relatives on this island, I guess off of Scotland, I don't really know, and something pretty traumatic happens to her. Definitely is like thought-provoking, and it was a hard read, but I also really enjoyed it because, oh, another thing about her is she's mute, so she can't speak, and she has to figure out how to communicate in different ways, because like sign language wasn't a big thing in 1808, excuse me. But still, it wasn't a big thing in 1808, so she had to figure out different ways to communicate with her brothers and her parents, and then the relatives she visits and the guy she falls for. She does fall in love with this guy, but it doesn't have a happy ending, I will tell you that much. So definitely look up with this one, but I do think it is a good read, and if you want something really challenging to kind of sink your teeth into this summer, I'd check this one out and just know that it's not what you think it might be. Except now it probably will be what you think it will be because I told you that. But anyway, moving on. Okay, and then finally, wow, this book, I'm not sure if I should recommend it, but I'm going to, and that is Bridge to Haven by, that hurt. Don't know if you guys saw, but like the corner of this book literally like hit my neck. You guys would be surprised by how many times I actually hit myself with books, or like when I'm doing this and like I slap myself or something. YouTube is a challenging job. It's not even a job, it's a hobby. Anyway, on to this book, Bridge to Haven by Francine Rivers. This book, oh, it is long. It is long and it feels even longer than it looks, trust me. So, we follow Abra, that's her name. And she is basically abandoned by her mother. Her mother gives birth and abandons her under this bridge. And this pastor ends up finding her, but he can't raise her because his wife dies. So another family takes her in, and she is very bitter towards this pastor because she, like, Abra is bitter, because she loved him and she wanted him to raise her. The new family ends up being great and like super nice, but then Abra decides to run away with this guy and go to Hollywood and become like a movie star. And what happens in Hollywood is crazy. Like, it's not this ideal dream world for her. No, she has some pretty terrible experiences there. And eventually she just realizes that like Hollywood is not the scene for her. Like, she should have listened to the like instruction of her parents and she should just go back home. And so it's kind of, I guess, like, it's not really a prodigal son story or like retelling, but it definitely like has hints to it because she does end up going back home, and the way she gets home, like, and what happens when she goes home is just so like, it just touches my heart. And she does end up falling in love with the right guy and ending up with him, and that is super, super sweet. The ending sucker punched my heart with this one specific revelation, but it was so worth it, and I really did like reading it just because of the personal lessons that she learns and how she recovers and allows others to come alongside her during her healing journey. And just when she recognizes that she is like at the end of herself and she can't go on any longer away from her family, and then her journey to Christ. It's just so good. And Francine Rivers just writes stories that are so sweet yet so brutal to you at the same time. You're like, it's a journey. It is a journey, and most Francine Rivers books are like that. So that's Bridge to Haven, and it's definitely hard. So yeah, it's hard. When she goes to Hollywood, it's like you don't think things can get worse, and then they get worse. Okay, so these are the 6 books. Here, let me face them this way. These are the 6 books that I would recommend to you for some romance this summer. These 3 books here that I started the video with definitely have a lot of romance and cuteness in them. And then these 3 books here, they're upside down, but these 3 books here, whew, they're rough. They do eventually end up with romance, but that is not the main goal of them. I decided to put them in the video because if you want a more challenging summer read, I think those would definitely be challenging, but if you also want the end goal to be romance, they do have that. You just have to get past the triggers. So I gave a little for everyone, I think. If you want some hard stuff, you got some hard stuff. If you want some light stuff, first 3 books are for you. But check them out. Let me know what you think. If you've read any, if you want to read any, I would love to chat about them. And if you have any summer romance recommendations, drop them in the comments for those that are looking. So, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a like. And if you want to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Until then, bye!